Tesla's stop signs and Ruby's Oscar-worthy speech. We're talking about everything Good Girls right now.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
TV AfterBuzz, AfterBuzz. Hey guys, I'm Kelsey Hightower, your host for Good Girls. We are talking about episode 2, Slow Down Children at Play. And you might notice that it's a little bit lonely in the studio tonight. Juliet couldn't be here, but she obviously loved this episode, and we will see her right back here next week. So until then, you've got me, your host, Kelsey Hightower. If you're in the live chat, be sure to leave a comment, chat with me, and we're going to talk everything Good Girls. So tonight, we're going to be talking about Teslas, we're going to be talking about stop signs, Boomer leaving, and Ruby's amazing speech to Stan. Plus, we've got amazing news coming up next week. And we have some good predictions. So that is our show. Let's jump right in. We will start off with Teslas. First of all, that's an amazing car, and I'd like one. So if we want to brand that, just put some product placement for our after show, then I wouldn't mind taking a Tesla for a spin. You guys listening out there. But for the girls, they decided to take a Tesla for a spin when Annie stole a Tesla car at Nancy's baby shower. So she stole that car right from all of those Instagram influencers and the who's who socialites at her baby gender reveal party, and she gave it to Ruby and Beth, and they had to go sell parts for the Tesla. But they found out real quickly that you can't sell Tesla parts because it's kind of like an iPad. So they had to trade that in at the valet. So that was kind of funny. But talking about the baby shower reveal, we really saw Annie kind of take the reins on how she is going to take charge of the situation and kind of the girls group. So normally we would see Beth kind of be the lead and the kind of gang leader of that trio, but her and Annie were kind of in a fight about power a little bit this episode. And although it wasn't really apparent, you could tell when Beth wasn't going to pull the trigger on the gun that Annie decided she was going to take matters into her own hands. And she's just kind of been furious with Beth this whole time. So at the party, she decided she was going to take the keys, and I think that was a great move. I mean, it's pretty bold, but she doesn't like Nancy anyways, so you might as well, take the chance and do that. So then she took the keys, she gave it to the girls, and she kind of decided she was going to be the boss. And I kind of give her props for that, being the bad good girl for the episode. So we see a lot of her character changing from making mistakes, from kind of letting things slip, not paying attention to detail, to really taking charge of that, which was kind of cool to see her in a different light. We also saw her battling with tensions with Nancy and Greg, because she is still having an affair with Greg, and she has made it very clear that since Nancy is pregnant, she doesn't want anything to do with Greg. She's like, this stops. I don't want to be involved in this. And Greg kind of is still going forward with the relationship. He wants to leave Nancy even though she's pregnant. And that was a huge arc throughout the whole episode. I don't think that Greg is... I don't think he's a terrible guy. He's a very lovable character, but I completely support Annie in being like, I'm done with you, all this stuff. And we kind of see a relationship forming with Nancy and Annie. Nancy said she doesn't have real friends at this party. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this in the predictions, but I think that they might have a stronger connection moving forward with other episodes, throughout other episodes. That's really kind of a bold statement because Nancy and Annie like don't really get along right now, but I feel like Nancy is gonna like push the relationship forward, and she's gonna kind of make them be friends, which I think would be really funny, and I'd like to see that going forward into other episodes. So the girls got to like sport around the Tesla after the baby shower, and they found out through Dean that you can't sell Tesla parts and that you're gonna have to sell more common cars, I guess you would say, like Hondas, which I love a good Honda. That's what I drive now. But I'd upgrade to a Tesla, no problem. Next thing that we saw throughout this episode is Ruby's speech to Stan. Now, last episode, I loved Ruby in the Starbucks, and she's easily becoming one of my favorite characters. I mean, it's hard to tell which character is like a top favorite because the girls just do have so unique characters that they're playing, roles that they're playing, that it's like you love all of them. It's so well put together. But this episode, we saw Ruby, she is battling with Stan. So their relationship is on the brink because Stan found out all of the crime that the girls are doing, and he is saying, like, I'm a cop. How can you be doing, like, committing crimes? What am I supposed to do? You're putting me in such a difficult position. I know we talked about this last week. Juliet was talking about how he was kind of in the right, and that's very true. But I also feel like Stan should kind of be on the girl side. Like, that is his wife. That is his family. He should definitely be supporting them. I realize it kind of comes between a rock and a hard spot when you are an officer of the law and you're committing a crime. I get that, but you should still support your wife. So we're seeing a lot of that conflict this episode, and Ruby and Stan are in counseling at their church because they're big members. They're very big at their church. It seems like they go every week, and they're very involved. So we see them at counseling at church, and they talk about their relationship, and they have a kind of a secret alias name for what's happening, and they say that she's like having an affair, but really, she's like having an affair with the law, maybe, I'm not sure. So they're talking about that, and then later on throughout the episode, I feel like Ruby's just getting tired of saying she's sorry, apologizing, asking what she can do to fix this. And so she just explodes to Stan and says, look, let me introduce myself since you don't seem to know who you married. And let me tell you that I'm the person that saved our daughter. I'm the person that got our daughter a kidney. Like, your wife is the person that is taking care of this family, taking charge, and making things right. And I'm getting chills, like, just talking about that scene because it blew me away. Every time I watched this episode, I watched it a couple times, I had to pause at that moment because I was like, yes, girl, lay down the law. Tell your husband who is boss. Like, that is right. And I think it woke Stan up, and he was like, okay, you're right. Like, that's the person I married. Like, you have to believe that she has always been like that. So Stan ended up coming back, and it looks like their relationship is going to be mending, and going forward, they're going to have, we're going to fall back in love with their marriage and their relationship, and they're going to be that mom and dad couple that, you just adore. I think that it might happen within the next episode, but what I have to say is I really love this raw show of their marriage, and they went through this difficult time at the end of season 1, and it's the second episode into the new season, and they're still trying to mend their marriage. And I think that that's really cool how the writers showed this kind of raw sense of what married life is like, and that it's not always candies and flowers and good times, that they took several episodes and over the end of the last season into this season to really, be mad at each other and be upset with each other. So that's more like a better representation of what married life is like. So I really appreciate what the writers are doing and telling this story and being very authentic about it. That's pretty cool what they're doing. So that's where we're seeing Ruby and Stan's relationship going. If you love their relationship as much as I do, please let us know, because they're the only, strong couple in this series, or in this series. But they're one of my favorites. Like, they are the best representation of like your quirky mom and dad, like with mom and dad jokes and everything, and I just adore them. So if you love them as much as I do, just let us know. Moving on, we run into Boomer and Mr. Leslie in this episode. He is such a sleazeball. Now, as we've seen his character develop through last season and this season, he is becoming the character that you want to see in a body bag. And I said it, that's exactly where it's going. If you have an opinion, let me know. But you just want him to be shot. And I say that lightly, like, you don't want to kill somebody, but like, for the meaning of this show, you're like, okay, someone's going in a body bag. We saw it on last week's predictions. Might as well be Boomer, right? I think so. So he started off last season as that comedic relief, and he was that guy that's just kind of like stumbles into trouble. You kind of feel for him because he didn't ask to know everything about the girls and see Annie's tattoo and know that they were involved in the gang, and then get all tangled up in this whole mess with the girls and be locked up in a treehouse and all of the stuff that's happened to him. He did lead some of it on himself, but at the same time, he kind of felt harmless during season 1. Now, this episode, it kind of took a turn. We're seeing him blackmail Mary Pat into getting married, and then we see them at the house where she is trying to just be with her kids and watch Minions with the kids, and he's completely dominating. He's saying, I'm going to be your new dad. You better listen to me. And just very scary, dominating, abusive relationship already, and they're not even married. So he kind of is turning from that lovable, quirky character, and I say lovable lightly, to this character where you want bad things to happen to him. And he is even going back and forth in those roles in this episode, because he's talking to Agent Turner, and he's been pressing Agent Turner to, lock the girls up for the whole last season. And so he's currently working with Agent Turner to, get the girls trapped. Well, when the girls hold him at gunpoint, he kind of wakes up a little bit for a brief moment, because they are going to close. They're going to get him to leave the country. They're giving him money. He's going to disappear. Everything's going to be fine. And it felt like that could happen for about 1 second during this episode. And then Annie runs into Mary Pat at the grocery store where she's testing cake for their wedding. And they find out real quickly that Boomer is double crossing them. So it's just, he's that character during this episode where I just feel like it took a turn. He is not going to be coming back from this. He said he was going to talk to Agent Turner, then he turned his back and was like, no, I'm not going to do that. Then at the end of the episode, he talks to his butcher and like makes him angry enough to where the butcher or chef or whoever, it would be a butcher, he was like chopping things, beats up Boomer. So then Boomer goes to Agent Turner and is like, oh my gosh, they hurt me, save me, I'm in danger, all that stuff. And so we're going to see a lot more develop, I think, with his character, and not in a fun-loving kind of way. I think it's going south real quick. I I don't love him, and I used to love him in season 1, but now I'm afraid to say he's going to be the one that ends up in a body bag. Ooh, and it's going to be for the good. And the other part of that is once he ends up in the body bag, who's the character that's going to be kind of the bad guy? Dean is kind of playing more that lovable, stupid, quirky dad. So I don't know if he's going to end up, being the bad guy. I don't know really what's going to happen with their marriage. It's probably not going to last. You can let us know what your thoughts are, who you think is going to be the villain this go around. But somebody's got to replace Boomer. All right. So the last thing about this episode that I really kind of was confused about, I liked it, but I don't know. I have questions. Is the stop sign. So this is kind of a running motif throughout last episode and this episode. The stop sign outside of Beth's house is torn down. Dean has noticed it as soon as he got back from the hospital. He's mentioned it a couple times. This episode, he talked about it when he got back from the hospital, and then also he was trying to call, I guess, your city whoever to get it fixed, or traffic department or whatever. But we all know they're a little, iffy most of the time. So they're obviously not going to do anything about the stop sign. But we just keep seeing the stop sign again and again in this episode and last episode. And I kind of feel like there's more to this stop sign than just being a stop sign and just her fixing it. I feel like it has to have some symbolism with their relationship or with how Beth feels or something, because throughout this episode, Beth and Dean almost get hit by another car because of the stop sign, and then Beth and the girls almost get hit by another car because of the stop sign. And then at the very end of the episode, Beth decides to take things into her own hands, and she steals another stop sign and puts it there at her corner out in her neighborhood. And that's where Rio comes up to her and puts her at bullet point, whatever you want to call it. I'm rusty on my street terms, you could say. But he puts a gun to her and kind of talks about why Beth didn't kill Boomer, why they aren't doing it, and kind of the consequences about it, threatening her a little bit. And then it takes a little turn, and Rio says that he's going to teach her. And I guess that means he's going to teach her how to kill somebody. So I feel like we have that to look forward to in the upcoming episodes. But if you kind of see this theme and this pattern of the stop sign, it kind of feels like there's either something additional with that, or it kind of represents Beth and Dean's relationship, where Dean keeps trying to help and trying to fix things, but he just can't get anything done, and kind of shows how Beth handles things, where there's a problem and she notices it for a little bit, she analyzes it, and then finally, when she's frustrated and angry enough, she just rips another stop sign down and she puts it up and she fixes it herself, because Beth is a fixer-upper, and not just with houses, but with crime. So I think maybe that might be the running theme with the stop sign, but there might be more to that. And I don't know if we're going to see it more throughout this season, if it's going to be like a sign. Get it? A sign, the stop sign? Okay. I don't know if that's going to be a sign for things to come, or if we're going to see more about their relationship through this beautiful stop sign, or what. But it would be kind of funny later on throughout the season if we saw like someone graffiti the stop sign, or like, do other things to the stop, hang something over it or whatever, just to kind of like keep that a running line, because they've emphasized it so much already that it feels like they should do something more and just keep it going. So I don't write, but I think that would be a kind of cool thing to do. So that was the biggest hit marks that we saw throughout this episode, and I feel like my favorite thing was Ruby's speech, I feel like she is kind of that character who she's not in charge of the group or the gang, but she does have so many great moments. So I feel like that was a huge point to that. And then for the end of the episode, we see a couple things happen. We see we see Annie, and she has a huge play, which we've talked about already a little bit leading up to now. But we see Annie at her apartment. Nancy comes over and is confiding in Annie about Greg having an affair. So Annie doesn't really know what to do because she doesn't want to be Nancy's friend, but I think she's going to be. And then as Nancy's talking about someone having an affair, who walks in but Greg? And I don't know if you were sitting there during that whole Nancy-Annie conversation, but I was like, I know Greg is going to come over. I know that they're going to get caught, but I didn't think that I thought that Annie would be able to talk her way out of that situation. I didn't think that Greg was going to just, come over and dig a grave for both of them. So that was at the end of the episode. So we're going to see more of that, how they resolve that in the next episode. Then we see Stan coming back to bed with Ruby, and that was a cute little moment when they talked about they were talking about their TV shows and the characters in their storyline and their inside jokes that they have. So that was a sweet, endearing moment that they shared at the very end of the episode. I would have loved them to talk more about what happened and Stan to maybe, he doesn't have to apologize, but just to come to terms with it and say, he doesn't have to say I'm sorry, but he could say like, I understand, or I'm going to work on this, or something more. So I'd like to hear a little bit more from Stan. Hopefully that'll be in the next episode. And then we saw Beth putting up the sign, which we just talked about, and the very last moment of the episode, Rio is telling Beth that she is going to teach her. And I think that means that he's going to teach her how to kill somebody or teach her how to be the boss, be the leader of a gang, take over, his business and be an entrepreneur in her own way. So I think we'll see that upcoming. So that was episode 2. I thought it was a fantastic episode. It's building, but we see a lot of new storylines happening this episode. So we got some predictions to talk about for episode 3.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV
predictions. Yes. Okay, so in the promo, we saw that Mary Pat is telling the girls that she wants them to kill Boomer. And we see that Beth has a gun. So those are our 2 little facts that we have to work with for next week's episode. And there wasn't a whole lot more. But I will say that our last little tidbit and sneak peek of information from last week, we got to see a body bag, and we didn't see that this episode. So that's still coming. We haven't seen the body bag. Someone's going to die. I don't know who it's going to be. My prediction is going to be that it's going to be Boomer. But if they haven't showed him this episode, I don't think that it's going to be like next week. I think it might be in a few more episodes. I also think that there's going to be a hearing or court case. They're going to go talk to lawyers. They're going to have the deposition. They talked about this a little bit. Agent Turner was talking to Boomer about dragging him into court, and because he's going to protect him. And I think that we're going to see a court scene. We're going to see something with attorneys and the FBI and everything. So I don't know if the girls will be there, but I know that Boomer and Agent Turner will be there. That's my prediction for that. And lastly, we are going to see something happen with Greg, Nancy, and Annie. I think that next episode, we're going to start to see Nancy and Annie kind of be allies. They might not be friends, but they might be allies working towards resolution with Greg. So I know that's kind of a bold statement, but I don't know. This is a show that's all about girls, women power, strong women characters, and I think that Annie and Nancy might be friends. And I would love that because Nancy's really growing on me. Like, I know at the beginning she kind of rubs you the wrong way with trying to be Miss Socialite of their city and like one of those prissy, proper ladies. But I'm kind of liking this vulnerable side to her, and I think that there could be some good come about this. So I think that might be fun to see the girls team up, because I want Annie to get away from Greg. I want her to move on and have another guy, because I do not think that her and Greg are compatible anymore, and Greg cheated on her, and I don't like that. So let's move on. New guy now. And those are my predictions. So if you have predictions of your own, be sure to put those into the comment section, and we'll read them out loud on the show next week. So let us know what you think, and we'll see where it goes next week. Next, we have a little bit of news. That's right. I said news.
TV news.
All right, so real big, one of my favorite things that happened on Twitter last night was Justin Spitzer tweeted that if you reposted his post, that you could end up on a Superstore episode as the name on Amy's tag. So Superstore is another NBC show, and the tie here is Justin Spitzer and Jenna Bans. Jenna Bans is the creator of Good Girls, are married. So they're both working on NBC shows, and they're both promoting Good Girls and Superstore. And if that is not an adorable showmance, I don't know what is. So Justin Spitzer sent out a tweet about Good Girls, about that coming on last night. And if you reposted it, your name could go in for the drawing of being a name on the Superstore name tag that Amy wears. So I reposted it. You can go to my Twitter and repost that again, and you could get your name on a name tag. But hopefully my name gets on a name tag. You know. Our second bit of news, we have one more piece of news, and it's a really big one, and I'm excited to tell you guys that next week, Lydia Jewett, who plays Sarah on Good Girls, is going to be a guest with us. So she's coming in, and that is Sarah, who is Ruby and Stan's daughter, and she just got her new kidney on the show. She will be in here, and we're going to see how her new kidney feels, next week. So that will be real exciting to talk to her. She's super adorable. She's already doing amazing things as a little actress, and we're really excited to chat with her. So make sure that you tune in next week, because you don't want to miss her. You can put questions in the comments that you want us to ask her, and we'll ask some of those questions from you guys. So be sure to leave a comment. Let us know anything that you want to know from Lydia, and we will be asking it live on the show next week. All right, guys, that's our show. We've got some really good things. I do want to bring back one more segment that we did last week. We're going to keep it coming each week, so you can think about this as you watch the show. But it's our Baddest Good Girl. And I think I got that right. Last week I was a little bit tongue-tied, but it is our Baddest Good Girl. And that's where we talk about who our favorite girl of the trio, or outside of the trio, is from this episode. So last week I picked Ruby, and that was because she did an amazing stall job. She was an amazing wing girl at Starbucks. And this week I've been thinking about it on the show, and it's a tough one. I'll say that, because I want to pick Ruby again, just because she gave that speech to Stan and she really laid down the law. But I also kind of want to give it to Boomer's grandma, because last week I was talking about Boomer's grandma being on the show, and I really wanted to see her character come back. And she was back this week, and she was as adorable as could be. If you remember this scene, Boomer comes in, and she said that she had just been watching Wheel of Fortune, and she fell asleep to Wheel. First of all, my heart melted. I died. Like, what a grandma thing to say. And then Boomer was teaching her, I know Boomer, we don't want to talk about him, but teaching grandma how to work an iPhone. So he gave her an iPhone, bought her a new iPhone, and said, this is how you FaceTime. This is how you talk on the phone. And she was so adorable, and she just has all of the perfect grandma characteristics. And that's why I love her so much. So I kind of want to give my bad good girl to her, just because she's so bad at technology and everything, you know, that you would expect from a grandma. So I do love her, but I feel like that's kind of, you know, just a pass because I like her character so much. And then I also am torn between Annie, because Annie really stepped up this week. Normally, she messes up everything, and she tries to take charge, but everything gets screwed up. You know, we saw last week how she was in charge of a station watching the DNA guy. She didn't have a pin. Her phone died. She was left without anything, and she like barely made it through. And that's just her character throughout this whole season. The show, really. But this week she pulled through on a lot of things, and I think for that reason I'm gonna give Annie the Baddest Good Girl award. These are my reasons why. Number one, she stole a Tesla. I could stop there. She stole a Tesla, she didn't get caught. That's a real game changer for her. Number two, she hung around Nancy. That in itself is a real game changer for her, because she's just growing as a character with number two, because she normally can't stay in a room with her without mocking her or running away or something like that. And she was with Nancy a lot this episode. She started off with her at the beginning when they were inviting her to the baby shower, and Nancy was saying that herself and Annie were the only two people who had been in the same situation, as she was referring to being pregs with Gregs. And Annie handled that pretty well, rather than yelling at her. But I thought that was one of my favorite moments during this episode. So number one, Tesla. Number two, hanging out with Nancy and befriending her throughout. We saw that through the end of the episode. And lastly, I feel like she really stuck up for herself, and she's really taking pride in her character and who she is. So, I mean, when she was talking to Beth, I know there was like some sister fights going on, and Beth's always been there for her, but I feel like Beth takes the reign on most things and most decisions. And Annie kind of stood up for herself and said, you know, I would have pulled the trigger. Give me the gun. Let me do it. Beth wouldn't let her. And when that happened, she took matters into her own hands. So I feel like for that reason, I got to give it to Annie. So if you have your favorite baddest good girl, then let us know. I'd like to hear who you think was this episode, the baddest good girl. And that's about it. So we covered the show, we covered news, we covered predictions, and we covered bad good girls. And I'm even wearing my good girls shirt to prove it. So if you have any opinions, if you have any questions for next week, then make sure you let us know. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and follow us. And I'm your host, Kelsey Hightower. You can follow me on all social media at Kels Hightower. And until next week, we will see you later.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.